Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for another international exchange opportunity. I am Sarah Sibley, the Vice President for Citizen Diplomacy at World Boston, and I welcome you to today's episode, Work in Wellbeing During COVID-19. And welcome to our speakers, Paulina Salazar Torres and Lilian Denham Martini. As you may know, World Boston is an independent, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization with the mission of fostering international engagement and global cooperation. That mission is particularly important during this truly global time of a pandemic, even as we practice social distancing. So even while we're at home, maybe especially while we're at home, we strongly believe that while programs may change, the mission persists. Today's event is part of our new virtual series called International Exchange in a Time of Isolation, which is designed as part of our ongoing citizen diplomacy work and focuses on people-to-people contact in the human face of the international dynamics shaping our lives. We hope you'll check out our upcoming virtual programs and learn more about World Boston at worldboston.org. We need your participation and, if you can help, your financial support to keep this essential mission going. By the way, I want to note that in the coming weeks, you'll be hearing from us on social media about this very topic. Summer is Donor Days at World Boston, and every week we'll be posting messages from and about our major donors. You can join in by thanking these generous sponsors, liking their posts, and so on. The support of our community makes our work possible, and we are very grateful. In terms of housekeeping for our event today, we're using the webinar format of Zoom this time. Everyone but the speakers will be muted. There will be a slide presentation during the discussion, but if you want to see all the speakers at once, click Gallery View in the upper right-hand corner. We are asking all questions to be put into the Q&A box, not the chat box, where I'll be reading them aloud during the 10 to 15-minute Q&A session after the 30-minute discussion. We are also using the raise hands function. So if you would like to be called on to ask your question aloud of the panelists, please do so. If you have your hand raised, we will call upon you at an appropriate time. My colleague Josh Bruno, Manager of Citizen Diplomacy Programs, will be running the tech in the background of this event. We are recording this event and we'll be sending the recording link on YouTube in an email follow-up. Feel free to visit our YouTube channel to see all the recordings of this series, as well as some of our other World Boston events. Additionally, I do want to ask for your patience today with the cross-continent connection to Chile. Now I have the pleasure of introducing our two speakers for this week's episode, a discussion of the COVID-19 situation in Chile and its effects on work and well-being. As you may know, World Boston typically hosts about 800 international leaders in our Greater Boston community each year, designing and implementing professional exchanges for them. Understandably, these in-person projects are on hold at the moment, at least through September. We are looking forward to starting some virtual projects in August. We had the pleasure of hosting one of our speakers today through a U.S. State Department-sponsored professional exchange program called the Young Leaders of the Americas Initiative, or YLAI for short. We hosted 10 young entrepreneurs from across Latin America and the Caribbean in fall 2017, and this was World Boston's first group that stayed an entire month in our community. I see some of the DC-based programmers who managed YLAI 2017 are on this call from Meridian International Center. We also have some folks from the DC-based organization IREX who are managing the upcoming YLAI program in 2021, rescheduled from this year, of which World Boston will be a part. Welcome to you all as well. Now I'd like to introduce our YLAI alumni, Paulina Salazar Torres. Based in Santiago, Chile, Paulina is the founder of Lab Nettings, an online platform where scientists can communicate and share resources. The platform allows scientists to ask other laboratories for any resources they need, allowing for increased sharing of materials and equipment. Paulina has conducted research in molecular biology, specifically in neurodegenerative diseases. She has a bachelor's degree in biochemistry from the Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile. While with us in Boston in fall 2017, Paulina was a fellow at Lab Central, a shared laboratory space in Cambridge, as well as at MassBio, a nonprofit organization supporting the life science industry in Boston. Outside of her fellowship, Paulina had professional meetings and workshops with the Cambridge Innovation Center, the Massachusetts Office of International Trade and Investment, and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. She also competed in a pitch competition at Brandeis International Business School. And in addition to professional meetings, Paulina and her cohort experienced a classic New England fall with a trip to Honeypot Hill orchards for apple picking, a trip to Plymouth to visit Plymouth Plantation and the waterfront, dinner diplomacy at the home of one of our local volunteers, as well as a networking dinner with one of World Boston's sponsors, Bridgewater State University. I see some of our friends are on here from Bridgewater. Thank you for joining us again. As we prepared for today's event, Paulina shared this about her international exchange program. Quote, "The YLAI experience in Boston happened when I was in my first year as a lab nettings entrepreneur. It was an incredible experience, since Boston is one of the main places of science and innovation. It was very productive to meet companies with a collaborative point of view in science, similar to lab nettings, and this allowed me to gather feedback and apply it to the solution we have nowadays. The main lesson was how powerful networking in the industry can be, and that it is always positive to open up to the possibility of collaboration between scientists. In fact, we have a section in lab nettings now that is exclusively to search for other laboratories and researchers," end quote. Highlighting her lesson of networking, Paulina has brought a contact in Santiago to join our discussion today, Lilian Denham Martini. Lilian is the Executive Director of RED-EG, a network of companies for gender equity, diversity, and inclusion. She has more than 19 years of experience in executive and leadership positions in marketing and communications, developing and implementing public-private projects, and strategic alliances at national and international levels in a number of industries, including energy, infrastructure, environment, technology, and agro. RED-EG was successfully developed through the collaboration of more than 180 organizations from the public, private, academic, trade, and NGOs of various industries, both in Chile and in Peru. Today, the RED-EG initiative is owned by Denham Consulting SPA, and together with the leadership of its executive director, Lilian, it has made its way throughout the country, forming networks in major Chilean cities. Its main objective is to promote and develop concrete solutions to eliminate discriminatory practices that produce inequalities in workspaces, thus achieving a real transformation of organizational culture. As Lilian and Paulina share their insights over the next 30 minutes, I want to remind those of you who have recently joined the webinar that we are keeping attendees' mics muted. There will be time for Q&A after the 30-minute discussion, so please do send any questions you have in the Q&A box. And if you miss anything, don't worry, we will be sharing a recording on YouTube after the event concludes. In particular, we also ask that everyone please be patient with the transcontinental connections here on Zoom. We may have to turn off the panelists' videos if the connection gets a bit slow. Well, let's get started. Let's get started with the COVID-19 situation in Chile and catch all of us up with the current pandemic and response. Paulina, could you please give a brief overview and then let us know perhaps about the scientific response to the pandemic in Chile? It'd be helpful to hear a bit about any vaccine efforts and how the pandemic has impacted the science sectors and ecosystem of which lab nettings is a part.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sarah, for that great presentation. Well, to answer the question about the situation here in Chile, I gathered some information from Sunday, and until that day, we had 270,000 confirmed cases, and we are the country with more deaths per million here in South America and about the 10th worldwide. Despite this, a positive aspect is the fatality rate, where we only have a 2% and more than 85% of patients recover from COVID here in Chile. Okay, we are also making some efforts in the research for the vaccine. Josh, the next one, please. For this, I wanted to show you the phases in the research and market release that it used to take for a vaccine to go into the market. Approximately, it used to take about 10 to 16 years, and nowadays, thanks to these collaborative efforts in science, the huge advances in technology and the hard work, we have at least 2 promising vaccines that are in the last phase. The next one, please. Also, scientists were able to identify the virus and decode the genome in less than a month. This is a huge success. And this was along with an unprecedented amount of research for this particular topic. More than 22,000 research papers has been released during this year. And also there are 2,000 trials going on around the world. So here in Chile, a group of scientists in the Pontifical Catholic University of Chile is already developing also a vaccine, and they just got into preclinical trials. Next one, please. But it could last at least 2 years to go from this phase up to phase 3. But the other progress that we have is a collaborative agreement between this university and the Chinese biopharmaceutical company Sinovac to test the last phase of this vaccine here in Chile. This will allow to test the effectiveness of the vaccine, and also for the Chilean people, it will create a more easier access to the vaccine once it is proved. This is critical because new studies have revealed that naturally exposed people to the virus that already recover does not necessarily maintain the protection for a long time. And thus there could be second waves of COVID in places where they were already recovering. So scientists are postulating that this vaccine can create an immunological response that and memory that will last longer, and it will help people. So it's very important. And just to end this section, I want to show you some programs that Chile has launched to promote research and development here. We have initiatives like Startup Science that it makes the entrepreneurship with science, and also some funds specifically for research in COVID, and some funds for the protection elements for healthcare professionals. And all of this is boosted by the Ministry of Science and the Corporation of Productivity in our country, Corfo.
Great. Thank you for sharing your professional insights about that, Paulina. I'd like to now turn to Lilian to ask her about her insights on the workplace response to the pandemic in Chile. Lilian, it sounds like there's been an enormous increase in people working from home, much like here in the US, like myself included. What sorts of challenges are you seeing in Chile due to the digitization of work? Have you also seen a gender-based impact through the work you do at RedEG?
Thank you, Sarah. Good afternoon, everyone. It's my internet connection. Yes?
It's a little delayed, but I think it's okay now. Lilian, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great.
Unfortunately, we have some troubles with internet connection, so I think it's ready.
Great.
So, okay, I couldn't see the presentation. Could you? Okay, here I am. Okay, thank you, Sarah. Good afternoon, everyone, again. So let's talk about a little bit about digitization of work. Well, how did it begin? The health crisis came abruptly from workers in Chile without mediation or training in the companies. So at the beginning of this year, the benefits of teleworking were still being discussed in the Congress, and it was with the arrival of COVID-19, which was quickly approved promulgated as a law, which must be implemented in 100% of company by July 1st, tomorrow, very, very soon. So along with this law are the following three aspects. First of all, acceptance and adaptation by workers and employers. Secondly, it also involves a process to break down prejudice. Working from home is equivalent to doing nothing or giving less, for example, what has been discussed currently, because there are people who feel that they are more productive, more punctual and efficient in their meetings. And third is organize a new way of working among teams, type of work, industry, tips, project, etc. According to the study by the Chile Mujeres Foundation, it indicates that 95.3% of the companies in Chile have implemented this practice, okay, and in telework mode. And if one of these aggregate by binary gender, 92% of women and 74% of men who are currently networking. It's here to stay. Josh, thank you. So this modality has put gender gaps on the table with greater intensity and how present gender stereotypes are in Chilean society. The same survey points out that the greatest difficulty for 92% of women and for 74% of men is being able to combine the task of cooking and cleaning with work. And in the same sense, 36% of men declare that their greatest complexity in carrying out their work from home is the quality of the internet connection. Also, it's a perception gaps between women and men. So next, please, Joshua. Okay, another study incorporated into the analysis of Telemujeres is that 47% of people declare that amount of domestic chores has increased, and 45% of people declare that they are carrying out activities that they did not do frequently before, which means that people also have the opportunity to develop more domestic skills. Very good news, isn't it? Men's cooking, cleaning up, etc. Taking care of their children is a good news also. Well, this is also because there are currently no support networks in the home for cleaning and caring for third parties. And this activity has to be addressed by the same people at home, even if they're living alone or in family. And the activity by gender gaps are as follows. Cooking, 30% men, 56% women. So women are still doing more than men at home. And also cleaning, 27%, 53% of women, laundry 22% men and 53% women, and childcare 18% men and 51% women. So this scenario, Sarah, invites Chilean families to be much more co-responsible, both in household chores and in the education and care of children, in order to balance the work and family burden of the workers. Next, Josh. Well, to promote the co-responsibility and telework in its best form, the Telework Law was issued in April, which comes to protect the rights of workers with clear rules. Here I share the main aspect that is this law protects. Regulated by the labor code, first of all, then the worker will have the same labor rights as any other worker, even if collective or individual rights. The third is the worker may freely agree on their working day as long as their functions allow it. The worker will be able to combine face-to-face working time in their company. Sorry, I couldn't see. With working time outside of it. And the end is the equipment, materials, and tools must be delivered by the employer to the worker. As a definition, the law said that teleworking, working at home, is the worker fulfills their function through the use of the technological, computer, or telecommunication means, or must report those functions through these means. Next, please. Well, in practice, workers and employers should keep the following in mind to ensure a balance between work and family burden. Work regulations maintain limits in the context of work. First of all, workplace and safety. Feel free to choose where you work from, co-work, a coffee store, home, etc. Secondly, the costs in supplies and materials to carry out the work are on account of the company. Very, very important. And regarding the schedule and rest, respects people working hours defined by mutual agreement and with special care in the 12 hours of rest between one day and another, where the employer may not interrupt even on vacation or holidays. Yes. And the last, labor relations. Is very important to maintain good labor relations and healthy bonds, inviting the worker to the various activities of the company and financing the transfer to the office. Next, Josh. And finally, things that are missed the most. In this time of the health crisis, there are other aspects that go beyond the law and that have to do with the workers' link with their workspace. When asked about what they miss most about working face-to-face, 61% answered interaction with colleagues. In second place, with 42%, was the implementation of the workplace, printer, internet, and the third, 41%, was for routine and established hours. The list was complete by the comfort of the workplace, 35%. Moment of rest, such as lunch and coffee, 28%. And I don't miss anything, only 14%. However, Sarah, both groups believe that this way of working will extend over the time. This was stated by 72% of the men interviewed and opposed to 52% of the women consulted. That's all we can share about how is the impact the COVID on the work in Chile, Sarah.
Great, thank you, Lilian. It's definitely a time of change and challenge for employees and employers. Speaking of, hopefully Josh can get your video back on for the rest of the event and your Wi-Fi is more stable. Meanwhile, Paulina, to conclude this conversation, could you highlight the biological impact of the digitization of working at home and perhaps a couple of ways to maintain well-being during this time?
Yes, of course. Okay, to continue a little bit with this important aspect that this is the emotional impact that the COVID has generated in a lot of people nowadays. I want to just emphasize in some of them, like anxiety, depression, stress, boredom, and many others, that sum up with the misinformation overload, the uncertainty, racism on the internet, and even this huge pressure of overachievement that people is having nowadays. It's only natural that this emotional impact happens in the majority of the population. So it is really important to regulate this. There is also evidence that anxiety can cause accumulation of inflammatory molecules in the brain that can alter very important processes such as learning and memory. So the question is, what can we do to ameliorate this? Some simple advice I can give you is, for example, take some time during the day to take sun. It is very important vitamin D for our body. Also, try to contact your loved ones and share your experience. I bet everyone is going through the same thing, and social interaction is only natural for us. Also, exercise and maintain healthy nutritional habits. It's really important. And one last aspect I want to emphasize is to take care of sleeping well. The next slide, please. So why is it so important this? Because we have like an internal clock that is called the circadian rhythm. It's an internal regulator that coordinates the physiological and behavioral activities with the daily environmental variations. this means with the variation of the light during the day, our response in the body change. And I bet this has been very dysregulated for a lot of people nowadays, especially with telework. And so there are some habits that we can improve. For example, avoid screens from technological devices such as television, computer, cell phone, because the light that this project, it cheats our brain to think that we're still on the day and we continue awake for longer hours that where we should be sleeping, you know. Other two advices that are really simple is to dim the lights before going to sleep when you're brushing your teeth, or try to lower this frequency of your body, and avoid caffeine after 6 p.m. The idea is that your body starts to relaxing and enter to this mode of sleeping. And the last one, I know is a little bit difficult, but try to separate the bedroom from your workplace. Because if you're working on your bed, you're telling your body that this is no longer your place to rest. So you won't get this healthy sleep that you need. So I know all these habits, maybe it's a little bit difficult to achieve all of them, but maybe if you can accomplish just two of them, it would be like a great advance for your well-being. That's what I wanted to share you.
Great, thank you, Paulina. That's very helpful. I think we will now switch over to Q&A. I've seen a few questions coming in through the Q&A box, so please do send them along through there if you have questions for Paulina specifically, or Lilian specifically, or something you would like both of them to talk to from their two different perspectives of the current situation in Chile. Please send them through there. Or if you want to raise your hand, your Zoom hand, the icon there, then please do, and we will try and call upon you to ask your question aloud. The first question I see here, I think either of you would be great to answer. The question is, Chileans have experienced a great deal of civil strife over the past year, COVID aside. How has that factored into the well-being of workers who consequently might have already been under significant emotional stress, like we were just talking about, before the pandemic hit?
Paulina?
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, we had before all of this pandemic, we started this civil revolution here in Chile from October, I think. Yeah, October. So this had affected a lot of people also in the aspect of employee, because a lot of them lost their jobs. We had to have a lot of the commercial areas closed because of these movements. So this is also a significant stress for all of the Chilean people. And we're actually talking about the uncertainty I was telling you before. We don't know if after this pandemic, the movements are going to start again. I think it's the more probable scenario. But hopefully from the conversation point of view. I don't know, Lilian, if you want to say something else.
I agree with you. We don't know if this social crisis is going to start at the end of the COVID-19, but hopefully we can change and put on the table more positive things to our Chilean society, because we need to stay together and trying to find out better solutions, because the economy, the crisis is rised up this year, you know.
Great, thank you to both of you. Another question that might be answered by both of you is about Chilean youth. Specifically, those that may have been entering the workforce at kind of the start or during this pandemic, they've certainly been affected by the disruption to the economy caused by COVID-19. How would you say they have adapted?
Okay, I think we have like an advantage in that scenario because of the technological use of the devices. We have moved to this system of teleworking, so it have a more advantage to the youth people that are just entering into the work. On the contrary, a lot of companies have had like massive, what do you say, have to lay people off from their jobs. And so I think it's a better scenario for younger people nowadays.
Lilian, did you want to add anything?
Yes, as I mentioned at the first of my presentation, teleworking was, the health crisis came abruptly, so no one was very prepared. There's no mediation or training for the company. So if you think more than 95% of the company here in Chile are teleworking right now. So it's very, very a huge change for everyone. So I think that is the first challenge for employers and for workers also. And at the same time, we can think how important are the technologies to make these things happen better and keep running the business to everyone and keep employees have their jobs. So I think it's very, very important to consider how the impact of the technologies in this kind of crisis. So the digital gaps is also something that we need to keep attention, because older people, they don't know how to use them, so they need to ask to young people to help them and be patient until they just feel prepared to use these platforms for keep their jobs and also to keep in contact with their families.
Yes, very good points. And I think that's worldwide for sure. We have a question here looking to learn a bit more about positive developments you may have seen among Chileans through this crisis. What has given you optimism about Chile's resiliency?
In my case, sorry, Paulina, you first?
No, go ahead.
Okay, in my case, I think this is scenario from domestic on the labor scenario, invite to everyone to be more co-responsible, I mean. Today, the gender stereotypes are put on the table because we still are thinking to keep those kind of activities on the women responsible and not to be shared with men. So this is the best time to learn again or to better understand those roles. I think it's very positive for everyone. In the case of men, they can get they can learn other domestic skills. I mean, when you feel good to cook or to clean up your room or to help in your family tasks. So I think that is a great opportunity to be a better man, and also for women do different things to share those activities with their family. So this is the best moment, I think, to change those stereotypes in the family, also at the work. I'm very optimistic about that.
I think also that a good or positive point of view of all of this is that people have now adjusted better to technological devices for working. And now they are realizing that it's not necessary to go to work like for example, every day, you can do some tasks at work and complement it with the chores that you have at home also. So it gives you a little more of flexibility and time to spend with your family also.
Yes, I agree with that.
Great, thank you. We have another question here asking more about the government response. The question is, how has Chile managed the COVID-19 situation better or worse than its neighbors?
That's a difficult one. Well, according to the data I was showing you about the deaths per million, we are right now in South America, one of the countries with more deaths. I think that the logic of closing or limiting the going out in some places and some other not, it's a little bit confusing for people. But the healthcare system has really tried to do their best here in Chile. We can see all the support that people have given to them. Just an interesting fact here, and as in other places in the world, people applaud at 9 p.m. for all of them, just to show them their support. And I think that's a positive side of this, but we definitely can improve the way things are going on right now.
Lilian, did you want to add anything?
No, it's not my field.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Paulina. Another question we have from an attendee. What do you think that must change in order to avoid another pandemic situation?
Well, this is huge. There's a lot of theories of why this happened. I think one of the main conclusions that you must have from this is to, once you detect the problem, try to address it in a more urgent manner. Because at first, and I include myself in this, I was like, no, it's not that important. Maybe it will go on, like it will be less than we are figuring out. But then we realized it was a huge thing and it affected the whole world. And we could have done better measures to avoid the spread to all the world, you know, and try to learn from those that started with this in their countries, because we saw how the situation was in there, and we could have taken measures before it happened in our country. It is only normal that because of the international connection that we have nowadays, this would happen. I think it would have been really difficult to avoid the spread because of the amount of traveling that is going on nowadays. But I think to try to take measures from the starting point is really important.
Lilian, would you like to add anything, or should we move to the next question?
No, next question.
Okay, great. Another attendee has a question about the reopening. She asks, for companies who are opening with limited staff and modifications, what are the protocols, restrictions, or testing requirements prior to entering the workplace, either the first time or every time?
Okay, so here in Chile, we have some restrictions to go to work. Only people that are working in essential workplace can go. This is like the food industry, healthcare, pharmacies, all of these you can go, but you have to take a license in a portal for going on into the streets. That's one thing. Also, a lot of places are taking the temperature of people before going in. I have seen this in my university at least. And having the right permits to go on. We can see nowadays that there are regulations, but people are still going into the streets. So the Chilean government also placed some like tickets if people won't respect this process. Yeah.
This question might be a good one for you, Lilian. What do you think the new normal work-life balance will look like after COVID-19?
Well, what I think about the new normal, well, we're trying to find out what is the new normal right now. We are still in quarantine, so at least here in Santiago de Chile. So we're trying to find out what is the best way to keep the balance between work and family life. So first of all, I think is to better understand what is the situation of the workers, because as I mentioned, we don't have any network yet working or helping us in our homes regarding cleaning, cooking, childcare, etc. So in that way, I think when we think about the new normal, we need to start thinking or consider what are those tasks or activities that women and men need to put in place every day. So we need to fix or try to combine with their labor day. So this, I think that is the huge challenge. So inviting to us to be more collaborative and also more co-responsible. I think that is the best way to keep those areas in balance. Not just thinking in worker as a people who spend all day just working. So we need to understand that at least for women, we need to be in charge or being responsible about our childs, our homes, etc. But if men feel invited to be part of this, I think we'll find out the better way to keep those balance.
We actually, it looks like we have some sort of a follow-up question to what you were just saying, and also thinking about the new teleworking Chilean law that you had discussed earlier. The question is, do you think employers are going to have more tasks in that area or opt out and go back to the old normal? I think this is looking ahead at a post-COVID normal.
I'm reading just the question here within it. Well, first of all, to be implemented this law, as I said, tomorrow, the total companies in Chile have to be implemented this law, and they have to do training to their employers to better understand the new rules of this kind of modality of teleworking. So that is going to be the first task. So if they're going to have more tasks to do, I think this is the first of all to better understand the limits of this law, and also to combine co-responsibility, not only thinking about the family, women, husband, etc. I think companies need to be co-responsible also, because if you, for example, you ask to do meeting after 5 p.m. So please be considered, because this I think is not the best time to schedule a meeting, maybe early in the morning, but not at the end of the day, because you're trying to keep your workers stay working. So we need to respect the rest of their people, and also combine the limits of what this law is going to pretend to regulate.
That's very good points. This looks like a question for Paulina.
Mm-hmm.
What challenges have you seen working in a lab? Did you or your colleagues ever work from home previously, or were certain protocols put in place at the lab to work from home?
Mhm. Well, okay, normally it's a lot of work in the laboratory because of all the experiments that you have to do. So most of the situations are in the lab. But now, because of the COVID situation, a lot of the laboratories are closed because they belong to the universities where a lot of research is made. What has increased a lot is the productivity in the publications. I don't know if people know this, but researchers use a lot of time in the experiments, and there is few times to stop and take these results and put it into the paper to publicate. So this has been a great period of time to just write and try to publicate all the research that you have done on the last years, you know. That is a really good point for us in this time. It has also affected undergraduate students that are doing research because they had to just stop in the middle of it and continue just with what they got, or take another point of view to their research. Maybe do some research or reviews, for example, or change the perspective of how it was done previously because they don't have access to the laboratories nowadays. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Looks like we have another one here for you, Paulina. What can private citizens do to support efforts in the scientific field? We all know how to get involved politically, but what can we do for STEM during COVID-19?
I think it is important to nowadays that we have all these technological access. We see a lot of information that is not real. So I think a really or a huge contribution from society would be to corroborate this information before spreading it into the social media. And there is a lot going on the science field in this aspect, going from COVID or other diseases or mental health care. So it is important for us that that you can just research a little bit better, see if the sources are good or not, so that we can take care of each other and not spread this uncertainty that make us more anxious nowadays.
Yes. I understand what you're saying here. Lilian, looks like a question here. It's kind of referencing something you already discussed a bit, but looking for a bit more detail. The question is, do the issues surrounding gender stereotypes and the move to working remotely follow a broader trend in Chile? And could you talk a bit more about how women have adjusted to this new normal?
Well, I would like to refer that we're still not in a new normal way. So in that case, when you ask to people how they feel of this way of working, most of them feel, they say that they think that this modality will stand, and more of the women mentioned it, that, but opposed 52% of women said probably we will stand. But if you combine the gender stereotypes and feel and this modality, of course, is going to be very difficult for women to return to the new normal, because if we don't have school or if we don't have a network function very well, they can't leave their homes and back to work. So in that case, if those things are not running out good, it's going to be impact more for women than men. So I think it's going to be very, very difficult for try to avoid or to resolve those gender gaps. So this, I think this is the main impact that we having right now, because even if the teleworking is a good way to work and keep our jobs, at the same time, it's very, very difficult for women. As I mentioned at the first, for women, the most, let me check, the main difficult for women to telework is make teleworking compatible with domestic work. So in the way those things are still function like that, we can think a better, how I say it, it's not going to be easier for women to return to work. So that's, I think it's very urgent to combine co-responsibility, because everyone needs to back to work and keep our jobs.
Great, thank you, Lilian. I think we've got one more quick question here for each of you. Just if you have any suggestions, aside from what you've already shared, to make working from home more productive.
I think a good advice would be to have reserved periods of your time during the day to do certain things and others to work, you know, because as Lilian was telling, we have a lot of things going on in the home with the child, to teach them also the school, everything that they are teaching from telework, from the school. And so if you could just have these periods in the day that are only for you and others that are for the work, that I think it would be really useful for having a more structured way of going in through the day.
Lilian, did you want to add anything?
Yes, I was thinking to add something regarding the team office. When you schedule your meeting, try to think about or be more empathical with your colleague, because I think it's going to be very helpful to keep in mind that we are the same place we are in the same place trying to fixing some situation at home, and at the same time trying to handle our schedule and to be responsible with our jobs. So trying to keep that in mind when you're trying to invite someone to a meeting, and also be more, how do I say, more solidario.
I don't know.
I missed the word, sorry. Solidary with your team. So because this COVID is impacted everyone. So it's not focusing on roles, on hierarchy levels. So it's impact to everyone, no matter who role you are doing on your work. So try to be more human. That's the main call to everyone. Don't forget that we are human beings, and we need to be a little more, try to be with a little more respect.
Yeah, I think in that aspect, it is important, like, for example, learning to program your emails or the WhatsApp text, leave it to the next day if it's already, I don't know, 8 p.m. So, because it is also stressful if you are getting all these messages and information from all over, and it is work related. I think that's important too.
Keep good relations, labor relations, because I heard sometimes when someone said that the first cause that stress people at work is their boss. So try to be a good boss or a good leader, a very cercano, near leader. Yes.
Great, thank you both. I think that's a good way to wind up. We do want to close within an hour to respect everyone's time. So thank you to both of you, Paulina and Lilian, for taking the time to come together. I think it was a very educational, interesting way to spend an hour hearing about the experience you're having in Chile during this truly global event we are all experiencing. So thank you again for your time. Really do appreciate it. And
Thank you.
thank you to all of you who also tuned in. We appreciate your own call to citizen diplomacy during this challenging time and hope you'll continue to tune into our virtual webinar series. Since mid-April, we have been running this series, International Exchange in a Time of Isolation, typically weekly on Tuesdays. And we are now going to pivot a bit as schedules are changing, both with the summer months and the reopening of offices, at least in Massachusetts, not in Chile. Next month, we will run bi-weekly events at the middle and end of July. So registration will open on our website and you will be able to find the links there. In August, we'll put the series on pause and we'll keep you updated with how the series might look in the fall. So please stay tuned for event announcements on our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and sign up for our newsletters to stay informed of these opportunities. If you haven't already, you can do so on our website. Your friends at World Boston wish you all to remain in good health and in good spirits. Take care.